welcome to this lecture by MAXQDA with Dr. Christina Silver. My name is Tamara Pataki, and this is my pleasure to host this event today. I would like to introduce Christina Silver to you, but before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping so that you know what awaits you today. So we will have a lecture, and the lecture will take roughly around an hour. We will have a short introduction to MAXQDA by me, and afterwards we will have time to discuss your questions. While the lecture is on, you have the option to think about your questions and post them all in the Q&A. You can find the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen. You also have the option to chat with us, and we are here to help you. If you have any technical difficulties, let us know that in the chat. And if you have any questions to Christina, please collect them in our Q&A section. So without further ado, let me then introduce you to today's esteemed speaker, who are very, very happy to have with us for this event, Dr. Christina Silver, who is an associate professor at the University of Surrey and also the director of the Cactus Networking Project. Christina has been using and teaching qualitative data analysis software packages for over 20 years now, so truly an expert in our field. She has conducted many different research projects, big and small, with and without the use of qualitative software, including her own studies and many other academic and applied research projects. Christina's strength is in working out creative and efficient ways to analyze different types of data using dedicated software. She enjoys the dynamic nature of intensive workshop-based training and bespoke one-on-one coaching, where she can not only train participants in the operation of the software, but together with them design strategies that are best suited to the needs at hand. This way, she learns from those she works with, as well as supports them in their analysis. Christina has designed and carried out analysis for many independent organizations. She has taught under and postgraduate qualitative methods courses in the UK and European universities, and has contributed to doctoral programs across several institutions. As I mentioned, she is currently the director of the Cactus Networking Project at the University of Surrey, and she's also the director of the Qualitative Data Analysis Services Ltd. She's also co-author of Using Software in Qualitative Research, a step-by-step guide with Anne Luyens, and the 5-level QDA method with Nicholas Wolf. She's, of course, also a certified MAXQDA trainer, and she will be talking us about using AI for qualitative research today. So with that, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Thank you for joining us, Christina. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that introduction and for inviting me to speak to everyone today. I love speaking about methods and tools, so this is really exciting for me. So thank you very much. I think I've shared my screen successfully, and I believe that the slides which I'm going through will be shared with everyone who's here, so you can look at them later if you need to. You can also see on the first slide all of my contact details. I'm in many places on the internet, so whatever your preferred social media platform, you can probably find me there, and I share lots of resources around these topics. So before I get started, as a qualitative researcher, I think it's really important to position ourselves. So that's where I'm going to start first of all, and I'm going to do that by talking very briefly about some influences on the way that I think about the topic that I'm going to be talking about today, and also with respect to terminology. So Tamara, in the introduction, mentioned two of the textbooks that I've co-written with authors, and my collaboration with Anne Luyens and also Nick Wolf have had a fundamental effect on the way that I think about and use digital tools, MAXQDA, and other tools for my analysis. And for those books, we did quite a lot of research into how people engage with software, how they start to use MAXQDA, what they struggle with, so that we can come up with ways of helping people to use them in the most appropriate way. So that's a little bit of the influences for my own work, but I'm also very much shaped by the work of Trina Paulus and Jessica Lester, who have published this book, but also many, many articles, particularly around technological reflexivity and the consequences of the tools that we use on our research practices. So those are some of the key influences which have an impact on the topic under discussion today, which brings me on to terminology. So the title of my talk today is Qualitative Analysis in the Age of AI, Enacting Methods Appropriately with MAXQDA's AI Assist. And in the description, I've said that I'm going to critically contextualize those tools within the field. So I just want to make a few points about some of those terms in the title and the description. What do I mean by critically contextualize, and why is it important that we do that? And so for me, I think it's really important that we must think about the purposes to which we put tools and their role in our analytic process. So drawing on some of the work I mentioned earlier, tools do have consequences, and therefore we shouldn't be using them without thinking about those consequences. And that relates to the data that we work with as well, and also the methods that we use to analyze those data, as well as the tools. The way in which tools are developed and the way that they are promoted is also really important in this field. So I'll make a few reflections on that along the way. And as I said, the consequences are really, really important. And I think that's never been more important now as we see AI having more and more of a role, not just in qualitative data analysis, but research generally and our lives generally. So in terms of my position around all of these things, there are many tools, there are many methods, there are many forms of data, and I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all answer to how we should use these tools. And that's for a number of reasons, not least because qualitative data analysis is not uniform, it's not homogeneous. There are many different types of data, there are many different types of method, and so appropriate use of tools is not a static thing. It changes as we engage more with tools and depending on the project that we are working on. And therefore we also need to be very open about different opinions, and there are very different opinions around the use of tools, especially AI, that we're seeing at the moment. And I think it's really important that as a community of practice, we are open to listening to others' perceptions on these issues, because that has an influence on how tools continue to develop and methodologies as well. And so my position in this regard comes from a very pragmatic approach. So I very much believe, people are going to use AI for qualitative research. So I really, in my teaching role, want to try to ensure or contribute to ensuring that that use is appropriate. And so what does appropriate mean? That's really important as well. And for me, appropriate use of generative AI involves three intersecting topics. First of all is ethics, and ethical issues are really, really important. But that's not my main focus in today's session. I have discussed the ethics of the use of AI in many previous events that you can watch on my YouTube channel, and I've written lots of blog posts around the topic, the references of which are at the end of these slides. So if you want to hear more about my take on the ethics in respect to generative AI and qualitative analysis, you can look at those resources. But in terms of qualitative analysis, amongst the key ethical considerations are questions about data privacy and security. And they are taken very seriously by the developers of MAXQDA, and you can find out a lot more about how they handle those considerations on the website. In addition to data security and privacy are issues regarding to how large language models are developed and the environmental and societal consequences of their use, which I I've also spent quite a lot of time thinking about, and some of those issues affect the way that I use these tools myself. But as I said earlier, the ethical issues are not my main focus today. Instead, I will be focusing on the technical considerations in the form of generative AI tools provided by MAXQDA, and I will outline and reflect on several of those. And I will do that in the context of methodology, okay? Because we use methods we use tools, to enact our methods. And so the intersection of those three is really important. But before I go on and start talking about this in detail, I'm really, really interested to get a sense of what your thoughts are. So those of you who are here live today, I would like, if you don't mind, just to take a couple of moments to click on the link that I have just posted in the chat, which will take you to a Google form where I'm just asking one question. And I would really like everybody who's here live, which is quite a lot of people, I think now, to quickly answer that question. And we will have a look and see what the temperature of the room is in terms of the role of generative AI for qualitative analysis. Whilst I give you a couple of moments to do that, let's just have I can see in the chat that people can't see the link. The link is above where you're all saying where the link is. Is that not coming through? Thank you. Somebody else has reposted it for me. So basically, in terms of the field, what I found in the discussions I've had for the last couple of years around these topics is that there's quite strong feelings. So we have quite a lot of people who are skeptical around the use of these tools for qualitative analysis, worried about the potential dangers. There's also many advocates who are excited about the possibilities for the practice of their analysis, but there's also quite a lot of people who are unsure, researchers who are not sure about these aspects. And so they feel like they need to know more before they can make an informed position. And maybe some of you here today are in that situation. You've come along because you want to find more about what's happening in this space. So as I said before, because AI is contested, we really must be open to discussion. And this is a summary of the previous responses to the question that you're all now answering from previous sessions I've done. So collective responses from many hundreds of people who've been on similar sessions before. So I'm going to now bring up your responses here. Not there, that's my university page. And hopefully you can now see this. Let me just make it slightly bigger. And let's just see how we are. So we've had almost 200 responses now. So a few unsure. Lots and lots of people are quite excited or really excited. So that's very interesting. So there's more excitement in the room here today than I've seen generally in the previous sessions. And I will add your thoughts to that later on. And at the end of the session, I'll ask you another question and see what your thoughts are. So if you haven't yet filled that out then and you want to, then please do. Okay, so I'm now going to get on to the main topic of my talk today. And I'm going to start off just by contextualizing what we're talking about in terms of what's happened historically in this field. So I'm talking about MAXQDA and the recently released Tailwind, which is a product by MAXQDA, which leans on generative AI. So we're talking about the capabilities that have become possible through the widespread accessibility of large language models. And that intersects in this space here, the sort of interpretive qualitative analysis space. But that space where MAXQDA has developed from happened alongside other strands of technical developments and traditions of tools for analysing text. some of which lent on what's now referred to typically as traditional AI, so text mining, content analysis, and also computational linguistics. And MAXQDA has had some of those features, for example, topic modeling and sentiment analysis for a while. But what we're now seeing is the kind of overlap and intersection of tools. But I'm really talking about working with qualitative materials and thinking about how these large language models and the tools that are being developed in that space can intersect and help us with our analysis or not. If you don't know very much about large language models, I would highly recommend that once you get hold of the slides that you click on this link on this slide here. And this web page is an interactive and visual description of how large language models how large language models work. And I think it's really a useful resource just to access, just to understand how the predictive statistics that work in these language models how they manifest themselves. But what it means in terms of our space here for qualitative analysis are to do with the capabilities. And for me, there are 5 core capabilities that have an impact on what we can now do. So generating, conversing, summarizing, converting, and labeling. And generating, of course, is the sort of generative in the generative AI term, and that's about getting ideas about things. And we can do that in a variety of ways. We can also converse. We can ask questions about data via a chat interface. I'm sure many of you have used ChatGPT and similar interfaces like that. We can also summarize. Large language models are very good at summarizing, so reducing data by condensing and synthesizing. We can also convert one thing into another. And the classic application of that is the automated transcription tools for creating verbatim written transcripts from audio or video, and then labeling, tagging and categorizing content in our materials using these tools. And what we need to think about in deciding whether it's relevant and appropriate to use these kinds of tools in our workflow is to consider where in a qualitative workflow they may have a place. So here on this slide, I have a sort of fairly broad, high-level list of the sort of typical phases of a qualitative project. They may be slightly different or labeled differently depending on project, but this is probably a fairly good overview of many projects. And we can map those 5 capabilities that I just described onto this workflow. And what's most important about this Sankey diagram is not exactly where each coloured line goes between left and right, but more that most of the capabilities on the right-hand side have a potential role in multiple stages on the left-hand side. So the point being that these kinds of new tools can have a potential role, can be used throughout the qualitative research cycle. So in order to unpack that a little bit more, on this slide, I've just given a few examples of each of those stages. But what I'm focusing on today are the sort of formal analytic phases of a qualitative project. So familiarizing, categorizing, analyzing, and interpreting. And that's what I'm going to mainly focus on in terms of the detail of this reflection of the appropriateness of these tools. MAXQDA does have automated transcription now. I may have time at the end to talk about that, but I'm going to mainly focus on the analytic aspects today. All right, so what can MAXQDA, what role does MAXQDA have to play here? So there are 3 sort of groups of tools, if you like. The transcription, the automated transcription, which can happen within MAXQDA or from within MAXQDA or via their website. The AI assist tools, which are within the main MAXQDA software, and then this new web app that I mentioned earlier, Tailwind, which is leaning on generative AI capabilities as well. And what I want to do is to think about how we can enact our methods appropriately through the use of these tools. And so I feel like I need to say a little bit more about what that means, first of all. And Tamara kindly mentioned the work that I've done with Nick Wolfe in the past to develop our pedagogy, so our mindset essentially of how we think about getting the most out of software like MAXQDA. And the key principles in that pedagogy are that our analytic strategies are separate from our tactics. So our strategies are what we plan to do, so the methods that shape the way that we go around planning our analysis. And the tactics are how we do that. So back in the day, my very first qualitative project I did using highlighter pens and scissors, and I had bits and pieces of paper all stuck all over my bedroom walls when I was doing my undergraduate degree. So that in that project, my tactics were manual methods, paper and pen methods. But now we have bespoke software, and MAXQDA has been designed specifically to help us enact our methods. And so that's what we mean when we talk about tactics. So I very much come from the position that although the availability of tools does affect what kind of methods we can use, it's really important that predominantly our analytic methods, our strategies are driving the way that we use tools, so that we're not just using a tool just because it's there, but we're using a tool because it's helping us to accomplish an analytic task that we need to do. And so that's really what that textbook is all about. And in that kind of setting, in that framework, then of course we need to think about, well, what are our data? What are the methods and what are the tools? So in terms of data, I like to draw on the work of Janet Salmons, who in talking about online methods actually distinguishes between extant, elicited and enacted forms of qualitative data. And you can see there lots of examples of qualitative data, but qualitative data generally is anything that's textual, anything that's audio, or anything that's visual, could be moving or still images, or indeed a combination of some of those. And we can generate those from a variety of different places. So we have a lot of potential data available to us. In terms of analytic methods, we also have many, many different analytic methods. I've just put 4 broad methods up here: discourse, content, thematic analysis, and grounded theory. And within those, I think about those as umbrella methods, because within each of those there are multiple more specific methods, and these are not, of course, the only analytic methods that we might use in a qualitative project, but they are some of them. So what I'm thinking about always is how can we use the tools that we have at our disposal appropriately in terms of enacting those methods with those data that we have at our disposal. Okay, so going back to our 5 capabilities provided by large language models, generative AI, and think about how that maps onto the tools in MAXQDA and Tailwind. And so here you can see, I'm not going to go through this. This is more as a resource. If anybody's unfamiliar with MAXQDA, this will hopefully be useful to know which tools provide which capabilities. And where the result goes. So this final column on the right hand side here is where the result of using the AI in these 2 platforms goes within the interface. But I haven't got time to talk about all of these things, so I've just picked out some of the key ones to focus on today. And so if you're in the situation when you want to think about, okay, how am I going to make these choices? about using these tools appropriately for my methods, then I suggest that you answer these questions for yourself. And I don't think there are uniform answers to these questions. I would even have different answers to some of these questions for each project that I might be doing. So thinking on a project by project basis, why you're thinking of using AI, when you're thinking of using it, how you're thinking of using it, what you imagine it will contribute to your analysis, and making sure always that the use of AI that you employ matches the perspective of your study. And so I think those are really key questions in order to ensure that we are enacting our methods appropriately. Because it's that intersection between method, data, and tools which is really, really important. What I have been doing myself as I've been playing around with these different capabilities that we now have is thinking critically all the time, okay, if I use this, what am I going to gain? What is it going to give to me above and beyond what I had previously? And also, is there something that I might lose in my analysis by using this tool? So just taking that to a slightly more practical level, I found that quite a useful mechanism to help me critically reflect myself. So I'm going to start off with a couple of illustrations here, picking out two of those capabilities, so generating and labeling. So getting ideas for projects and maybe creating data is the broad definition of generate in terms of large language model capabilities in the qualitative space. And labeling is the idea that we can tag and categorize content. And this idea of labeling is often referred to as qualitative coding. I'm calling it labeling here rather than coding because large language models can potentially help us do more kind of categorizing or tagging beyond what we might think of traditionally as qualitative coding. But qualitative coding, I'm sure those of you here who have done qualitative projects in the past will know a lot about qualitative coding. But in terms of MAXQDA and Tailwind, down here you can see three core capabilities that we can use the AI for: code suggestions, subcode suggestions, coding itself, and then identifying topics in Tailwind. And just in case you haven't used MAXQDA before, this is a screenshot of what coding can look like. This is actually coding I've done myself rather than with AI, just to show you how that looks inside the software. So I'm going to talk about code suggestions initially, and here is an example from within the main MAXQDA product using AI assist functionality when we can ask the AI to suggest codes from a text segment. So here I can select a segment of text and say to the AI, give me some suggestions of what might be potentially useful codes, and it will come up with a list of which I can choose. And if I choose those codes, then those codes will get applied to that segment of text, as you can see here, and appear in my coding system here. And I also get a definition. So thinking about my logic of what do we gain, what might we lose, what are some of my reflections on this? So using AI to suggest codes at the segment level, basically this is really useful to get ideas for code labels and definitions. It can be really useful for sense checking, and particularly if you have sort of ambiguous data. So those of us that have done coding before, we often see something and we know it's really, really interesting, but we can't quite capture in our own minds exactly how best to label what's interesting about it. And in that kind of situation, these AI code suggestions can be really, really helpful. And we can pick and choose the ones that seem relevant. What might we lose? So we might lose the incorporation of our accumulated knowledge of the research area and prior context. So when I'm coding myself, I bring everything I know about the topic and everything I know about the previous data I've looked at and everything I know about the conversations I've had with my co-workers to bear on every coding exercise. And that's not happening when I'm using AI Assist, of course, because AI Assist is using its language model, not my accumulated knowledge in my brain. That's a problem only if I am only coding in this way. So what you'll see is, as a sort of theme throughout the rest of my presentation today, is the idea that a lot of what we might lose, is related to how we as the humans are using these tools rather than the nature of themselves maybe. So always thinking about using these kinds of tools alongside other ways of coding as well is really important. We might also lose the sort of nuanced level of coding if too large segments are used to generate the codes, because if you choose to apply codes that are suggested by the AI, it's going to apply them to the whole of the segment that you started off at. And if that's quite a large segment, you'll get lots of codes, or whichever code you select maybe capturing not everything that's relevant. You can adjust that yourself. That's no problem. You can always adjust everything in MAXQDA. It's very flexible in that regard. But if you have to do lots of adjusting, then that's not really saving you any time. So that's something to be thinking about. So my advice in this respect is to think carefully about how big the segment is that you're asking the AI to suggest codes on the basis of. When might these kinds of tools be useful in respect to the data that we may be working with and the methods that we may be using? So in terms of data, I would suggest that these tools are useful for any form of text data. In terms of method, particularly inductive code-based approaches, this lends itself very nicely to, because it's looking at the actual text segment, of course, as the basis of generating a code suggestion. It's also very useful, I think, when I want to combine different levels of abstraction in my coding. So when you get the suggested codes, MAXQDA AI Assist will provide you with 3 groups of codes which get more interpretive in each group. So sometimes it can be useful to consider codes at these different levels of abstraction. So sometimes I want descriptive codes to describe what's going on in the data. Sometimes I want more theme-based codes and so on. So I find this to be a useful way of giving me ideas for those different levels of abstraction. Okay, let's move on and talk a little bit about actual coding using AI Assist. At the moment, the way that it works within MAXQDA is that we start off with a code that we give a definition to in this window here. We ask the AI to go and look for text based on the code definition. And this is actually a very loose, broad code definition, and you can iterate many times depending on the result that you get. But what's really nice in terms of contributing to the analytic process is not only does it select the text, but it gives you an explanation for why the AI thinks that that segment of text matches with your definition. And what I found very useful is to compare that with some of the coding I might have done myself and generating a table which you can do easily, comparing how I coded a different transcripts maybe with the AI coding for the same code. And that really helps you to think about whether you might have missed something or whether you need to refine things in more detail. And that brings me on to my what do we gain, what might we lose question again. So definitely as a sense checker. So the identification of material potentially related to predefined concepts, and we can check those very easily because of how that coding happens inside MAXQDA. It can prompt us to critically reflect on the coding that we've done ourselves in a lot more detail. We can think about the scope for our concepts, and it contributes to thinking about definitions and refining definitions as well. And also we can think about this as an additional coder. So it's quite common in many qualitative projects to do inter-coder agreement tests when you have more than one coder, look at data and then compare as a form of identifying consistency. And you could see AI assist as having a role in that kind of process as well. So several things there that you might gain by using that tool. What might we lose? We might, because it's a deductive coding tool, we might not see what we're not expecting or we're not looking for. So those inductive concepts we might miss if we haven't got our thinking hats on to be noticing those as well. And I think it might also depend on sequencing. So think carefully about, are you going to do some coding yourself first and then have the AI do the coding for the same concept and then see if you've missed anything, or indeed the other way round. In my experience, lots of researchers who are experimenting with these sorts of tools are testing out, does the AI do as good a job as I would have done? And then we need to think very carefully about the sequencing of the AI and the human coding. When might it be appropriate in terms of data and methods? So again, this can be useful for any text data, and in terms of method, of course, because it's a deductive coding tool, it's particularly useful for any method, any qualitative analytic method that leans on coding, where that coding has a deductive element, particularly where the concepts are well defined. If you've got ill-defined concepts, you're going to have to iterate a few times in order to get more useful coding, probably, but that might be what you're using the tool for in the first place. So that could be useful in itself, which is what my last point here is, I think, contributing to the refinement of the concepts. So we often make a distinction between deductive coding approaches, so starting with some concepts maybe from the literature or a theoretical framework, or maybe just from the research questions, what we're looking for, and deductively top down going to look for those. We often distinguish that kind of approach with an inductive approach, so generating codes as human researchers are looking through the data. If we're working abductively, that's one way of describing doing a little bit of both. And I see AI assist, MAXQDA's AI assist coding as contributing potentially to the refinement of concepts in that kind of abductive approach. Okay. So I mentioned code suggestions earlier from a text segment, but in AI assist in MAXQDA, we can also do that from a body of coded data already. So if you've already coded yourself or had AI contribute to developing a code, you've got many maybe segments coded to one broad code, and then you can ask AI assist to suggest some potential codes for recoding, for splitting that broader concept down into its nuance. In this example, AI assist doesn't do the coding, it's just giving you suggestions for codes, which are these numbered labels here with some examples underneath. And you can also prompt the AI assist to focus in a particular area in suggesting those codes. So this is a little bit different from the code suggestions previously, because it's looking across multiple transcripts rather than just looking at one segment. Okay, so therefore it's more of a thematic, a sub-thematic type of approach. And also it's not actually going to do the coding as a result. It would then be your responsibility to take a look at these and think, okay, which ones might be useful, and have those in mind when you do the recoding yourself. And that's really the basis of what I think we gain from these tools in our methods. So it gives us a structured overview of content within already coded data. It gives us some ideas for what to look for when we're recoding broad topics ourselves. And the ability we have the ability to focus the subcode suggestions, I think, is a really excellent way to play around with different properties and dimensions of a potential theme by focusing it one way and then focusing it another way, and playing around with ideas of how that theme might be constructed if we looked at it in different ways. And I find that to be super helpful. Again, what we might lose is noticing other potential subcodes if we only use the ones that were suggested. So we've always got to remember, well, okay, these are suggestions. There might be other stuff that it's missed that I'm interested in as well. And at the moment, there's no direct access from the examples in the memo that we get to the actual data. It would be really nice if we could have that as a quick direct way to evidence where those suggestions are coming from, but otherwise really helpful. In terms of data, any text data again, but it's also useful in terms of method for focusing attention when we're doing that recoding. And I think that's particularly valuable in abductive methods. And of course, this sense checking subcodes that we've already created. So you could do this either before you do any subcoding yourself or after you've done that yourself, in order to see whether the AI suggests something that you hadn't noticed yourself. So again, that idea of sequencing will affect how the tools might be useful. All right, so far I've talked about coding in relation to MAXQDA itself. And so thinking about how the AI assist tools can augment coding practices. If we go into Tailwind, which is the new online app, then we have the ability to use the generate capability to identify topics, and that can happen in two ways. Either we can ask Tailwind to generate topics automatically, or we can focus the topic identification by searching for things. So again, that's the difference between that inductive and deductive generation of topics, as they're called here. And what we can see on the left-hand side is either way, whether you ask it to generate them automatically or based on your analytic focus, we can choose the topic suggestions that we want to create based on our interest, our research questions, and so on. And then also, when we've generated topics, this is what the results looks like initially. We can adjust the title of the topic and the description of the topic, and then regenerate the topic, so we can kind of iteratively refine it down and make it more focused around our particular analytic need. So this is in some ways similar to coding, but we're not actually coding in the technical sense. It's identifying topics and then summarizing them for us. What we gain, I think we gain a lot in terms of a quick overview of content based on those inductive topics. It's also a very quick way to extract ideas that we know we're interested in finding, just to see whether that material is there or not. And in Tailwind, we do have direct access to the candidate examples from that interface very powerfully. Again, similar to what I said previously with respect to coding, we may forget to consider other material not identified by those automatic or user-specified topics if we're not open to the idea that we need to keep looking for other things as well. When might it be appropriate? Again, useful for any text data, but maybe especially data that you're not already familiar with, I think. So maybe literature, reports, social media content, and so on. I think this lends itself particularly to those kinds of data. It's going to be useful for familiarizing, which is an early stage in many methods, and also identifying topics for further and more in-depth analysis back in MAXQDA itself. And I don't see these two tools, Tailwind and MAXQDA, as separate. I would oscillate between the two to be able to get the best out of the available tools for a given purpose. Okay, I want to move on to summarizing. Summarizing is the idea that we can reduce data by condensing and synthesizing it. And we've got lots of different levels at which summaries can happen in MAXQDA's AI Assist and Tailwind. And I'm going to pick out a few of these to show you. The screenshot I'm showing at the bottom here is from Tailwind. And when you bring in a file into Tailwind, then it will automatically summarize it for you and display it above the full text, which is below. So you can't see it on here. But below here is the full text. This is an article in a literature review I was doing around bullying in schools. And when you bring in a file, it automatically summarizes it for you and gives you access to see where the summaries are coming from. What might we gain and lose by doing this? We could do something similar in MAXQDA. It's just displayed slightly differently. Again, a form of high-level familiarization focused on the main ideas on a file or document by document basis. Really useful for identifying topics that might be worthy of further exploration using other tools. We might lose a sort of nuanced interpretation if we see this as a replacement to further in-depth exploration. So for me, it's a starting point for analysis, not analysis in and of itself. In terms of data, again, any text data, but again, maybe especially that we're not already familiar with. As I said, very, very useful for the early stages of familiarization. If I've got documents that I need to quickly get a handle of, then within just a few minutes, I can get a sense of what's in the content of unfamiliar data, which is a core stage of many methods. And again, identifying areas to focus further. Now, I've been talking about summarizing whole documents or whole files, depending on whether I'm in AI Assist or Tailwind, but we can also get segment summaries, which are similar. This is available in AI Assist in MAXQDA. That's similar, but they're just more focused because they're just summarizing a smaller amount of data. The more data that you summarize, the higher level the summary will be, of course. But I would say that the affordances, the benefits are similar. It's just the level at which the summary might be happening. Okay, we can also summarize, as well as summarizing whole files or whole documents or parts of files by selecting text segments. We can also summarize codes or coded segments and topics. So what we gain if we're summarizing a code or the segments that we've previously coded at a code is a quick synthesis of a topic, theme, or concept, whatever the code in our project represents. And we also get the ability to quickly and in a structured way compare summaries when we have them displayed in tables, which we can do in both platforms. And that comparative element of the synthesis across our data is really, really helpful, I think. What we might lose, again, is the detailed level, because summaries are higher level and necessarily they are making choices about what to include in the summary. And so the idea of the needle in the haystack, I think, is something to be very aware of here. Sometimes in a qualitative project, something might be said only once, and that might not come up in a summary, but it might be the most important thing, even though it hasn't been said very often. So we need to be always reflecting on the level that's happening. And in qualitative data, it's not just synthesizing the general that we are only interested in. So in terms of their appropriateness in relation to data, I think you're getting the idea that I think that most of these tools are relevant to all kinds of text data. But in this example, maybe especially for large number of short responses, maybe coming from surveys as an example, if we want to look across and synthesize on that level, we don't maybe need that nuanced interpretation. So the summary level is particularly useful in those kinds of projects, maybe. And then also for methods which are in themselves comparative. So framework analysis is a form of thematic analysis, is one example. Or when we want to compare cohorts. So it's also, of course, possible in MAXQDA to activate groups of data. That's like a filter. So I can do one summary for one subset of the data and then compare that with summaries based on my topics or codes in another subset of data. And then also I would see these code topic summaries as appropriate for category development. So if I'm developing categories or themes inductively from my data, that can be really useful. And I've been very, very impressed with the quality of the summaries in AI Assist, particularly where I've spent more time because the tools have been there for longer. And this is just an example. You can have a look and read this in your own time when you get the slides. But I compared summaries that I'd written myself with the summaries that AI Assist did, and they are definitely equally good, if not better in some instances. But if you don't do the summarizing yourself, you are losing the accumulation of knowledge and thought and reflection that goes into doing human summaries. So I think they are not always what I would want to be doing, depending on the nature of my project. Okay, so I've talked about coding functionalities. I've talked about summarizing, so the labeling and the summarizing capabilities of generative AI. I'm now going to move on to conversing, which is something that we haven't been able to do in this form previously. So now we're really getting into a different way of engaging with data, maybe. Okay, so conversing is about asking questions about our data and having a conversation, an ongoing conversation in a sequence via this chat interface. And you can see what that looks like here. At the moment, that's available in AI Assist only, but I believe it is coming soon in Tailwind. One of the MAXQDA people here will be able to confirm that for us, I'm sure. But you can create different chats and label them so that you're having a really nice record of the chats that you're having. And at the moment, you can chat with one document, so one transcript or one piece of literature or whatever you've got in a document, which I see as case-based conversing. If we see a document as representing a case, maybe a person. And we can also chat with coded segments, which is more theme or category-based conversing, looking across the data. And one of the examples from the MAXQDA menu, the MAXQDA help menu that I first saw when this first came out was the idea of asking via this chat interface what the inconsistencies are in the data that's being coded. So if you've coded already lots of material and you want to check that all of the segments there are equivalent to one another, as a way of thinking about, okay, do I need to split this into more nuance or something? Then I found that this is a really nice way of doing that. And you can see that I can't even spell segments, but still the AI knows what I mean. So although I don't like bad spelling, it doesn't seem to matter a lot of the time. Okay. So what do we gain? What do we lose when we converse with documents or coded segments? Sense checking is a really important thing. Maybe early on in the process, you can start to chat before you do anything else, just to get an idea of what might be in the data. If you've got some hunches, you can verify them in that way. Also, a really nice audit trail of all the thoughts you've had about your data. What we might lose is this more sort of structured access to the categories and themes if no other work is done. So I'm personally not yet convinced that this represents an alternative to more established traditional ways of going about doing analysis. I might change my mind as I use them more and as the tools develop. But at the moment, I've personally feel like I still need to have a code so that I can gather all of those useful things that the chat might help me find and look at them again collectively in that way. But otherwise, I think it's a really nice way of engaging with data in addition to more traditional things. When might it be appropriate in terms of data? Maybe for longer documents, maybe if we want to check our consistency in coding, familiarizing with documents in the initial stage, category development again later on also. So very similar kinds of potentials. Okay, so although I haven't mentioned every single possible thing in MAXQDA and Tailwind with respect to the generative AI capabilities, hopefully I've given a little bit of an overview of some of the core things. So what I want to do in finishing up now is just to go back to where I started, which is to reiterate that what appropriate use of AI tools means, what it looks like, is contextually dependent. It's dependent on the data that you're working with. It's dependent on your analytic method. And it's dependent on what you're trying to achieve. So I like to think explicitly about those things. And when you yourself, if you haven't already started doing so, when you do begin to play with these tools, and everybody needs to play with them to see what they do in order to decide whether they're going to be useful or not, be thinking in your mind, how is this helping me? What am I gaining by using this tool? And am I losing anything? Because there may well be a balance that you have to achieve, and that may well be different from project to project, and also from task to task. So a few final thoughts. Beware of the hype. There's a lot of hype around the use of AI. I think that AI has a place in qualitative analysis moving forward, but I have also seen a lot of stuff on the internet that just isn't true in terms of what's possible. So just everything that you read, have your critical researcher's eye on it, because there are mistruths being purported around, what these tools can actually do. Don't blame the tool. So you are the one who is in control of using tools. And so you have to be also responsible for whether and how you use the output of any tool, whether it's an AI tool or not. And I don't think that that's changed. I think the stakes are a little bit higher now than they used to be because of the hype with AI. But always remember that you're the one that's operating the tool, and therefore you're the one that needs to be responsible for what you do with what AI generates. CACDAS is the acronym Computer Assisted Qualitative Data Analysis that colleagues of mine at the University of Surrey came up with many years ago, and is the basis of the project that we have still going there. And the first A in the CACDAS acronym is assisted. And for me, that word has never been more important than than now. These tools are here to assist us, and we ought to be thinking about the discourse of replacement versus assistance. And for me, it's assistance is what we should be focusing on. Remember to think about integrating. How can you integrate new tools with your existing processes, what the consequences are as well, and also this idea that it's not just pressing a button and there's the answer. We're still iterating when we're using AI, like we've always been iterating when we do qualitative analysis. So it's not an either or. I don't have to either use AI or not use AI. I can integrate and iterate between other ways of working as well. I think I've said it lots of times, there's no one size fits all answer to whether AI is appropriate, and I might use it for some projects, but there are some projects that I wouldn't use it for. And so therefore we have to be thinking critically about these. And then also think about your sequencing of use. So it's very different using generative AI tools. If you do some analysis first and then you have the AI help you think about what you did and whether you want to refine and add to it, or the other way around, having the AI doing something first and then looking at its results and adding to it. Both can be appropriate, but it should be a conscious decision around sequencing. So I think that's it from me. There are a couple of longer workshops I've got coming up soonish, in case anyone's interested. I'll leave those there, but I think Tamara, you're going to, well, I'm going to stop is what I'm going to do. I don't know what you're going to do.
Thank you very much, Christina, and thank you very much for your excellent presentation. I would like to now give you a short overview of what MAXQDA can do for those of you who might not know MAXQDA or might be joining us for the very first time. And after my very short presentation, we would get to your questions and we will open up the floor to have a discussion with Christina Silver. I will be reading your questions from the Q&A section. So I am just sharing my screen with you. And you should be able to see my my presentation right now. I'm sorry, I might need to do that again. Is it working now? Wonderful. I'm sorry about that. So I would like to give you a short overview of what MAXQDA is and what MAXQDA can do. So Christina did a wonderful job in introducing you all of the AI-assisted features that are available in MAXQDA, but I also would like to show you what else is available in the software. In fact, MAXQDA is a software with a very long tradition. It has been around for more than 30 years now. It is being developed by Verbi Software. We are a small family-owned company here in Berlin, Germany. And MAXQDA has been around since 1989. It is a desktop software which can be used to analyze all sorts of qualitative data. The MAXQDA comes with a standard installation. You install it directly on your computer, and this is the interface, what you can see. The design idea behind that is that you have an overview of your entire data set. So one project would be one project file, and you can see all of your data at a glance. You have your first window here here on the top left corner, where you can see all the data that you have imported. In the second window, you have an overview of your the overview of your opened open document, and you can see all your codes here in the third window, and we have the fourth window, which is the retrieve segments, where you can see your results at a glance. This works with the logic of activation. This is sort of like a filter function. So if you are wondering where, for example, you have coded the code education in your interview with Arne, you can just very simply activate that to have an overview of your results. You can code, of course, manually in MAXQDA very simply by highlighting a part of your qualitative data, for example, a text, and then selecting creating a new code. You have the option to choose different colors for your codes that can be also used in our visual options. You can give your code a definition, for example, in our code memo, and you can also create a comment on your coded segments to indicate how your segment is related to this code and how it fits. The idea behind this is that MAXQDA helps you to keep your analysis transparent and always traceable. And if you do that, MAXQDA will create your code directly on the text along with your comment. So here is your coding stripe and your comment that you just created. The new code will also be added into your code system. The code system in MAXQDA can be organized in a hierarchical way. You can have up to 10 levels of hierarchies. And you can see in this third window what I just showed you at the beginning very easily an overview of all of your codes along with the frequency, how often you have applied it in your data with your code memos that you have created that you can also very easily access by just a double click on these memo symbols. If you would like to report on the results of your coding, you have a number of options that are available for you right in the software. For example, you could use the feature Smart Publisher and Codebook. And of course, today it was all about the AI-assisted features in MAXQDA that Christina already gave a wonderful overview about. In order to use the AI assist feature, you have to have AI enabled for your installation of MAXQDA, and we offer both a free and a premium version of that. AI Assist can allow you to create project elements that you can otherwise create manually. For example, summarize text passages as a memo, suggest and apply codes for your text passage, autocode documents with predefined codes, suggest subcodes for a code and its segments, create automatic summaries for the coded segments of a code, or you can, of course, also chat with both your documents and coded segments, everything that Christina showed you in more detail. And she also talked about our new tool that was just released. That was just released recently. We now are happy to introduce you to MAXQDA Tailwind, which is our new browser-based web app that allows you to analyze qualitative data automatically using AI-driven summarization and AI topic identification. This is currently a beta tool that is included in AI Assist Premium. It allows you to upload your documents into the web interface, create summaries of your documents. Here, we are also laying a big emphasis on traceability. So, for example, we have links that allow you to see, to always navigate to the original passages of the text so that you can always see what is the relationship between the summary that was created by the AI and the original text data. And you can also create summary tables based on the document's summarization tools. This is a beta feature at the moment, so stay tuned. There are more features coming here. For example, a new chat tool that we are working on at the moment. And in case you don't know us, welcome. And we would love to have you in our community. Please join us. We offer a number of wonderful events just like this one. We also offer free webinars and research sessions. In our webinars, you can get to know MAXQDA tools in more details, where we also offer live presentations where we navigate you each of these tools and show you all of the all of the options that you can adjust. We also organize conferences and events. We have our own publisher, MAXQDA Press, where you can access manuals, guides, and more literature. We have a video library where you can find video tutorials. And of course, if you need help, we have a user forum. And you can also reach out to us, and we are very happy to support you with your projects. So just a very short overview of who we are and what we do. And with that, I would like to stop presenting and turn to your